Hey guys, it's a beautiful day. We're hanging out in New Westminster, and this is the Fraser River. Just one of those really peaceful, lovely mornings. We're looking at the Surface 604 Colt. This is a 2020 version. I've been reviewing this bike the past couple of years. They've got another one that's called the Rook, which is more of a step through, and Tyson reviewed that recently. He did a really good job. They're very similar bikes. They're kind of, you could think of it like a his and hers, although, you know, today with people, maybe you've got like a hip or knee injury or something like that, there's no shame in taking that low step just to make it easier to approach. And one thing they've done with the Colt this year is they've redesigned the frame completely, and one of the things they've done is lowered that standover height even more, so you can see how it slopes down, so you can get a stiffer frame. Mechanically speaking, that, you know, it is stiffer than the full step through. The frame isn't going to flex as much, but really, to me, both frames are going to be solid. This is aluminum alloy. I like that they've got this kind of angled, like beveled look on the top tube here. That's new for this year. You can see the battery is semi-integrated into the down tube. This is a Rienshin style battery, very popular. It comes in two sizes. So we're looking at the 14 amp hour. They ship it by default with 10.4. So that's pretty standard, about a 500 watt hour battery. Both of them are 48 volts, which gives you a little bit more efficiency in electricity delivery across the bike, and the potential for more power. The motor they're using here, it's a pretty good one. It's from Bafang, tends to be pretty quiet. It's a 500 watt nominal, 750 watt peak, around 50 newton meters of torque, planetary geared hub motor. There's no drag or anything when you're coasting. It's light, it's compact, it's black, it matches these black spokes, black rims. Done a really good job with the paint. I love this satin black with kind of some sand accents. Straight 1.125" steering tube right here that's a little bit higher, and you can see they've gone with, it's like a 20 millimeter stack height, two 10 millimeter spacers, 70 millimeter base for that adjustable angle Satori stem, 110 millimeters, and we are looking at the large. So having two frame sizes to choose from is very nice. Coming back to, there's really four versions of this bike. Two are the Rook, the step-throughs that are the most approachable, which again can be very nice if you get like a trunk bag or some panniers or something, you're trying to swing your leg over. Being able to just step across the frame is nice, and you do have to step a little bit higher, about 28 inches. I was measuring that earlier, got all the specs back at the website. If you feel comfortable with that and you want the, like, maybe the more masculine look or just the stiffer frame because you weigh more and you don't want that frame flex, you jump up to the Colt and you got those two frame sizes. So 17.5 or 19.5. We're looking at the 19.5 here. I'm about 5'9". That's my height. I weigh about 135 pounds. My inseam's around 31 inches. And this is perfect for me. This is a great size. It's feeling very comfortable. The interesting thing to note is it's using 26-inch wheels. So these are not 27.5 or 28 700C. They're a little bit smaller diameter, which makes them stronger, and it also lowers the frame. So that's also part of why we have a lower standover height on this bike. These tires here, they're Kendas 26 by 2.1. It's a pretty good, it's kind of like a hybrid tire. You got a little bit of tread here. It's not super narrow, which means you're going to get a little bit more stability, traction, and also just comfort as you're riding over like a boardwalk or maybe some cobblestone or sand or something like that. The suspension fork is also going to add a bit to the comfort. So this is SR Suntour XCT. We've got lockout right here, that's hydraulic lockout, and then preload adjust, so you can preload the spring here if you're someone who weighs a bit more. For me personally, like, I take that all the way out because I want the comfort, and I don't weigh a whole lot. But it's just nice to have those adjustability. There are some other suspension forks out there that don't have lockout, and a lot of them do have preload, but it's just the kind of thing that's, you have to take off the caps and stuff. So to me, this is a bit of an upgrade. 28 millimeter steel stanchions, roughly 80 millimeters of suspension travel on this. Quick release up front, standard 100 millimeter hub spacing, 9 millimeter quick release axle right there. And we were talking about the strength of a smaller wheel diameter. They're also using these nice 13 gauge spokes. So, you know, that's a little bit thicker, 36 hole rims. And back here we have a 12 millimeter threaded axle keyed, so it fits right in. And it basically, when that motor is activating, it's using that keyed axle design to put power into momentum going forward. So it does push on this frame. You can see they've done a lot to design this frame. They've thought of a lot of the issues that I notice on some of the other cheaper bikes. You can see they've got a dual piston hydraulic disc brake caliper right here. It's mounted a little bit closer to the main portion of the frame. It's not back here. It's out of the way of the rack. The rack's been redesigned, a little bit more area, and these nice slats on top. So if we bring the seat all the way down, see how that's not going to collide with like a bag back here? That's really nice. And just the positioning of this with a loop right here, so you could use bungees if you want, or you got that standard gauge pannier hanger. You don't have to buy the bigger, kind of sloppier cuff style hangers. This will work with almost any pannier on the market. Actually, it will work with both because it has that slightly thicker gauge tubing on top. So I feel like they nailed the rack. It's got that light that's wired in. You can see that the wire goes in through the rack tubing. Same thing, the headlight is wired in. Just really thoughtfully done. And then back here to the brake, they were able to fit a larger 180 millimeter hydraulic disc brake in the front and in the rear. So you get really good stopping power, which is nice. This bike isn't especially heavy, but it's not like the lightest either. About 57 pounds, you know, and considering that it's got like a built-on rack and plastic fenders and stuff, it's like that kind of makes sense. We are looking at the higher capacity battery as well, which maybe adds a half a pound or something like that. So coming back down to this portion of the bike, I really feel like the frame is dialed in. They've got this tab for a kickstand, and they've mounted the kickstand on the inside so that when you stow it, you won't get like heel strikes when you're pedaling. You can see it protrudes just a little bit there, but I actually haven't had any problems where I'm kicking that. And there are some other bikes where I've noticed that the kickstand's just, you know, at least it's not in the center where you're gonna get pedal lock, but it's still a little bit too far out. So I just feel like Surface 604 did a good job. Adjustable height on that, which is always nice to see. Pretty standard Welgo platform pedals here. They get the job done. They've got the rubber tread because these aren't super aggressive. It's not a mountain bike in that sense. These are not going to scrape your shins up if you slip off, which is kind of nice. One of the other things that I noticed about that kind of upgraded this year is a hollow axle right here for that spindle at the bottom bracket, which is a little bit stiffer, a little bit easier to service over time. And apparently that was one of the reasons they moved to a multi-torque sensor in the rear. So before they had kind of a torque and speed sensor right here at the bottom bracket, and it required like taking off the crank arms and, you know, messing with the bottom bracket. Now you can see you just take the rear wheel off and they've got that strain sensor bolted onto the right side of that rear dropout. So it's a pretty cool setup, And the drivetrain too. I mean, so 42 tooth steel chainring up front, standard 170 millimeter crank arms from Samox. Kind of name brand around this bike. It's nice that they've upgraded a few things. And when you come to the back here, they've got an 11 to 34 tooth 9-speed cassette with Shimano Alivio. And if you look at the different group sets from Shimano, it's like Shimano Tourney, Altis, Acera, Alivio. It's 4 steps up for a bike that's kind of like value in my mind. I mean, you know, again, it's kind of got everything. This is totally commuter ready with the fenders, integrated lights, a little bit of suspension, nicer gel saddle, all that stuff. And then to see a derailleur that's just nicer. It's a little bit lighter, crisper. It's going to, I think, perform better between servicing. It's not going to go out of tune quite as easily. You can see a barrel adjuster right here. So it does have some tool-free adjustments over time. As there's cable stretch, you can adjust that. And what I love again about those brakes is that they're hydraulic. You don't get cable stretch in those. So you're not going to be pinching your fingers with these brake levers. They do have adjustable reach right here. So I just feel like hydraulic, it gives you more stopping power, more consistency between the front and rear brake. The right that goes to the rear brake, that's a longer distance. So a lot of times with mechanical disc brakes, you're pulling a lot harder here. And over time, it's getting gunked up and it's more work. So you are paying a little bit extra for a bike like this. This is $19.99 US, includes free shipping if you're not near a dealer. But they do have a whole bunch of dealers. This is a Canadian company, so it's kind of cool to be here in like the greater Vancouver area looking at this bike. And I like this company. It's been around for a while. Neat to see them, like, they really redesigned this in a lot of key ways, and I thought it was a good bike before. So to me, that's nice. Attention to detail. Battery pack has a little USB charging port on the right hand side, so you could run an accessory off of this. It'd be a lot easier to do that right here though. The display, see, I got another USB port. You could put a phone up here. It might get a little crowded, maybe an additional light or something. I just feel like that's another really nice upgrade, this display. But coming back to the battery, you've got some spare energy with you. So maybe you're going on like a camping trip or a picnic, you could take the battery off and charge your phone or run a little accessory off of that. You got the key in, twist it. It is spring loaded, so this is gonna be a little bit tricky to do with one hand. There we go, almost got it. Come on, there it is. Oh, sweet. You can see that like rod right there. About 7.5 pounds on this battery pack. If you get the 10.4 amp hour, they're using 2400 milliamp cells versus I think 3200 milliamp cells on this one. Samsung name brand, pretty good stuff. About 9 pounds on that motor, just so you get an idea of weight distribution. There we go, and of course with the black frame kind of matching the black battery casing. There we go, got it. Feels like we're good. You don't have to leave the key in while you're riding the bike or anything. You can totally take that out and put it in your pocket, but I don't want to forget it, so I'm going to leave that in there. I've got these stitched, non-locking, kind of basic grips, but they actually feel pretty good. I see these on a lot of bikes because people like them. They feel comfortable. And then a nice little window here so you can see which gear you're in. And we've got the like push-pull action and multi-shift up here. That's really my favorite design. Adjustable angle on the stem, not removable, and it is such a nice display. It's kind of beveled and everything, so you know, I don't know, I kind of, very few displays are actually removable, and these days I guess people are kind of used to e-bikes, but it's nice. You can actually put a password on this so people won't mess with the bike. And if you look at the cockpit, you know, the bars aren't super wide. There's a little bit of a rise, a little bit of a back sweep, so they're fairly comfortable. And everything's reachable, but with the trigger throttle over here, you have to reach a little bit further to get to that button pad. But this is the way I would leave it personally, because I like to, like, instant access to the throttle is nice, and the throttle gives you full assist at 0, and it overrides all the other levels of assist, so it's like your backup. That helps you get started. It helps you, you know, ramp up a hill, or maybe, you know, take it up a ramp. I really like that. I'm going to get into those details in just a second. I think probably just power it on first. So I press the power button here. Surface 604. I'm going to take this over into the shade, and we just did this for the photos so we could kind of get the right angle on the bike. So it comes on pretty quickly. Here we go. See if I can get that. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better there. The backlighting on this for me is actually pretty easy to see when I'm looking straight down at it. And I think depending on if you turn the headlight on, it actually goes a little bit dimmer, which is nice because at night you don't want to ruin your night vision. And there's that Spanninga Kendo Plus headlight. It is aimable. It's mounted to the arch of the suspension, so it could bounce around a little bit, but that seems to be the way a lot of companies mount those lights so they don't get too crowded up at the cockpit. And then we've got this, it's another Spanninga light back here, Dukes, I guess, yeah. Fairly large. This is mounted outside of the rack, so be careful if you flip the bike up or something like that. That might be the first thing to hit. It's not protruding outside of the tire, but because they ship these, yeah, it's something I would keep an eye on. Be extra careful with that because it's not protected by the back of the rack. The good news is it's a little bit more visible from the side, so they're prioritizing safety on that design decision right there. So here we are. It's in dim mode. Boom, bright mode. Hopefully you can see this all right. Battery percentage at the top, which I really appreciate, much more precise than like the 5-tick design a lot of other displays use. We've got a power meter that almost looks like a gauge in a car or something. It's kind of fun. And then a speed meter too. So as you use this, remember what I said, I take this down to 0 and I use the throttle right here. We're gonna see it, kind of the power surge for a second and our speed ramp up. That's really cool. And then we've got trip distance down there on the left. And if I press this I button, we go from odometer on the right to max speed, average speed, and trip time. So yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There isn't like a range estimate or anything super fancy, but again, with that battery percentage, I think you get a lot of good feedback. And I like how there are dedicated buttons over here. So the lights, information, the power button, plus and minus change your levels of assist. So we go from 0 all the way up to 5. And it's very clicky, very fast. It doesn't feel like I'm like missing. Yeah, that's nice. When you're riding a bike, you want it to respond quickly and in the way you expect it to, and this button pad really does that for me. If you want to get into the settings, you hold plus and minus, and we've got all kinds of display settings here, so you can change from metric to imperial, LCD brightness, so we could go dimmer if we wanted to, which is really nice to give you access to this, how quickly it turns itself off, state of charge, trip reset, sensitivity, even the password thing I talked about, which is really cool. Change the voltage, but we wouldn't want to. That kind of mess things up. Advanced settings, wheel diameter 26, that's correct. Speed limit, so there is a little bit of, you can mess around with this and maybe even take it down. Sometimes people want to go a little bit slower, and that's going to help you extend range, and it might just feel more comfortable. This goes up to a top speed of 32 kilometers per hour by default, which is pretty good. You know, it's standard class 2 electric bike. You could even take this, you know, throttle off completely because of these quick disconnects. And if you did that, this would become a class 1. So it'd be allowed on more like mountain biking trails and stuff. And you know, this could probably handle its own on like gravel trails if you wanted to do that. You just didn't want the throttle. Another thing I want to call out is how they've taken these 4 different connectors that go from the motor inhibitors on the brake levers, the display, and the button pad, and then they've combined them into one unit down here, so it's a lot cleaner. Like, this is a little bit busy, then it gets clean, and we do have internally routed wires down there. It's all pretty good. One thing that I did not see here, there's no slap guard right here, so over time that black paint might get nicked up a little bit. You might see silver, because that's the color of aluminum. Not the end of the world. It's not going to rust or anything, but yeah, I don't know. I like that there is at least a plastic chain cover. It like fully surrounds, because I am wearing jeans today and I don't want to get my pants snagged and dirty. So that's nice. It even has like a reflective piece on the side, and that was one of the things I was looking at the tires thinking like, it'd be nice if there were reflective stripes on those or some puncture protection, but you know, that's the kind of stuff you could get aftermarket and add. And frankly, with the lights and a little bit of lighter accents on this bike, I feel like they've dialed it in, and they're really focusing on like fit and comfort with this new frame design, comfortable gel saddle, adjustable angle stem. And this stem, in fact, it has multiple tightening points, so it doesn't get as loose and rattly as some of the older stems that are just very basic. So this is a nice upgrade. This is part of what you're getting for the little bit of extra money on this bike. And they do sell an optional suspension seat post. It's like the SR Suntour NCX, and that's going to give you like a full suspension feel on this bike, which is going to pair nicely with that suspension fork up front. 30.4 millimeter seat post diameter by default, 300 millimeter seat post. So I think that's pretty it. Maybe this is a good time to just hop on this thing and go for a little ride and explore this area. Okay, so I'm just gonna stow that kickstand. It's nice that it doesn't hit that disc brake rotor, because you can kind of bend those out of place, and then you get that sound when you're riding. And yeah, it's nice. It's all set up. Got the seat raised. I love being able to use the throttle straight away, and I really want to see what's down that way, guys. So I'll show you the motor. It's pretty zippy. I mean, pretty quickly get up to some of these higher speeds. Like, you know, I got to be careful here because we're on the boardwalk, and you know, I don't want to frighten anyone. But it's very capable. I was on the Shred the other day, which again kind of shares the same battery and stuff. A lot of similarities, and I was able to climb a really steep incline. I would encourage you to check that review out, because I was actually out on the dirt, and it did a pretty good job. Again, I'm not the heaviest rider in the world, but really smooth with that kind of multi-sensor torque sensing dropout. Okay, it's one of my favorite tests here. Ride no-handed, a little bit of rattling, what that is. It's a pretty quiet bike considering those plastic fenders. Feeling pretty stable, even over these cracks and stuff. Slightly wider tires really help in that way. Yeah, nice. Just a beautiful morning for a ride. I wasn't sure what the weather was going to be like, if we were going to have to test out those fenders. It's nice to have them. And plastic, you know, weighs a little bit less. It sort of snaps back into place, doesn't get bent, and it won't rust the way that steel might. Okay guys, from here you can't really see that 42 tooth steel chainring, but it's there. And then we got that nice 9-speed cassette in the back, and the motor is just a good observation point, so you can really listen and see how responsive that motor is when I do pedal assist. I'm gonna ride up some stairs just for fun, just so you can hear things bouncing around a little bit. I am in the highest gear, so the chain is as close as possible to that chainstay. I want to see if it bumps or not, and yeah, let's do it. Was all pedal assist, no problem. Very, very smooth. Of course, the brakes worked great as well, and actually throttled up those steps just fine. I want to call out that if you hold the minus symbol on the button pad, you get walk mode, so that looks like this. Could be really useful if you're coming out of a kind of a ramp in a basement, or maybe you get a flat tire, you have to walk the bike home or something like that. Hub motors are nice in the sense that if you do drop the chain or there's some drivetrain trouble, the motor will still work. Presumably you can just throttle home. It's nice to have all of those options and just a lot of control with this bike. Maybe we'll show you the suspension up front. I'm noticing that those motor inhibiting brake levers are really coming in handy. Like, I never feel out of control with this motor. That is the 2020 Surface 604 Colt. Again, available in 2 sizes, very similar to the Rook if you want that step through. I didn't bring the charger with me. There's the charging port, so be careful you don't bump that plug if you kick the crank arms like that. But the charger's just a standard, pretty lightweight, compact 2-amp charger. Gets the job done, nothing super special. And with a larger battery, the 14 amp hour, if you pay for that upgrade, it could take more like 6 hours versus 3.5 or 4 on the 500 watt hour battery. So for the full written review, all the specs and some of the other Surface 604 electric bikes, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Please chime in with any questions, feedback. Maybe you've got last year's Surface 604 bike, or you just, you know, yeah, sound off. I always appreciate it. I love you guys. Ride safe. See you next time.